this lovely holiday evening. Um, a lovely home here, lovely humble home here in North Carolina. Um, for this known as Thanksgiving, I put Truthsgiving. There's a lot of history behind glorifying the um, glorifying and whitewashing the interaction between the settlers, European settlers, and Native American peoples. I'd like to say truths. I put truths giving. Now, how to not be alienating the workers, spread socialism, and address these things as far as strategy is completely new and uncharted terrain. Um, the bourgeoisie's trying it, the right wing's falling back. But how a working class activist talks about and navigates these things, I guess, is different in different settings and different communities. My background's changed a little bit. Um, I was forced to put a bed in my office, um, so it doesn't look as professional as the wall did. Got a few things behind me. Because of COVID, is at an all-time high right now. Masses of people are dying like never before. Hospitals are being overrun. The cases are going up exponentially. Few people, especially in oppressed nations, Afro American folks, um, Raza, Chicano folks, and general working people in general, who have to ride the bus, who have to continue working even if they're sick because they don't have another choice, who have to go to stores that charge them more, are less likely to practice social distancing and have less opportunity to stay home. Masses of the oppressed nations and the working class are getting sick from COVID. Because of that, this Thanksgiving it was only me, my wife, and my son. None of us really know how to cook an American Thanksgiving dinner. Um, we've been a little bit tired, so we ordered some Bojangles up, chicken fixins. For what it be. Listen to some records. It's just a lovely day. Um, and shout out to Itzel X. I'm very glad to have you here, drinking some apple cider. I think that's. Let me see. It's my wife, so I'm not for her. Hey, beautiful. I'm doing a live. Ah, ah, ah. Uh, this is my first Thanksgiving cooking. I've never been a big cooker myself. Um, we're actually feeling a little bit under the weather, and I am between health insurances, and I need money to pay the rent. So not much. I got work tomorrow and the next day. Um, yeah, so I'm a little tired. I got to be up by 2 a.m. I got to go sleep. I got to go to sleep soon. I've kind of been expanding my Thanksgiving tradition. Um, a few years ago, I started listening to Arlo Guthrie's Alice's Restaurant. And if you have, this is a great record and song to listen to on Thanksgiving. Believe it or not, the song is about 18 minutes long. Okay, you see how there's no song breaks. It's all one. So the whole record is the one song. If you look on this side, you see song breaks. The lines are song breaks. So on this side of the record, it is all one song. It is an 18-minute long song, and it's pretty clever. I could summarize it. It talks about him getting charged with littering, And then later on when he gets drafted and they stick him, with the other people that have criminal records. I think the punchline of the song goes, um, I'll paraphrase. It goes, "How are you going to get? Why are you worried about my moral character about joining the army for littering when the army burns villages of women and children?" Very powerful, potent, and it talks about, the song, the chorus, Alice's Restaurant. You can have anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Kind of like a, like a cool folk song. And thinking about, and it was talking about when this was published when the draft was in. It's like if you're going for your draft board, sing that song for the psychologist. If multiple people do it, it'll be like, a protest song, like a protest against the draft. And he called it the Alice's Restaurant Anti-Massacre Movement, which is against the war. So it's an anti-imperialist song. It's a folk music, and it's the son of Woody Guthrie, who was part of the Popular Front and had connections with the Communist Party. And that's and you don't hear about that. You hear "This Land Is Your Land." You don't know that "This Land Is Your Land." You hear that in child school was written by someone associated with the Communist Party. It's a good song, anti-war song by a song. So I do that all the time. 18-minute song, and then I checked into listening to this woman, which has an interesting story. Buffy St. Marie is an adopted woman of Native American ancestry. I believe she was raised by, settlers like myself. But she kind of got in touch with the history and her Native ancestry, and she does a song called "My Country 'Tis of My People You're Dying." My country 'tis of my people you're dying. And in that song, she talks about the genocide. She talks about the crimes of smallpox blankets given to exterminate indigenous people. And the very last line of the song is, "Can't you see that our poverty is profiting you? Can't you see that our poverty is profiting you?" And that is basically the scientific analysis of what is class and national oppression. The native peoples are oppressed nations. To this day, they're oppressed. They're kept in poverty, and that poverty is benefiting the rich here. Is the poverty of the working class benefits the oligarchs, the the poverty of the indigenous nations that goes on to this day. Indigenous nations from North America to South America are kept in poverty, and it isn't that they don't work; it's they're not given the proper portion of their labor. They're exploited, and oppressed nations are super exploited, a level of exploitation on top of what workers go through. And the fact that this was the original land of indigenous people, and you look at how "My country 'tis of my people you're dying," and COVID is hitting the oppressed nations and the working class harder than anyone else, and probably the population of indigenous people. COVID is having the worst effects and killing higher portions of native people on this Thanksgiving. I'm going to go on Facebook and make that public. When I do that, when I make the video public on Facebook, it allows me to see the chats here, so I don't have to have this pulled up. A level of exploitation. I think I can, I just edit this. Sorry, just bear with me, folks. People want to get in the comments. I'll give you a shout out in the comments. or I'll respond to it. Anybody watching, get up in the comments, interact with each other, making this public. All right, it's public now. So if someone on Facebook has a comment and post, there you go. Now I'm getting Facebook comments as well. That's great. So I introduced this Buffy St. Marie's "My Country 'Tis of My People, You're Dying" into my Thanksgiving ritual. I listened to Alice's Restaurant about the war. Me and my wife and my son sat down. My son is just, not even 2 years old yet. He started dancing in his chair, and my wife listened to it. This one's about being against the war in Vietnam. It mentions Thanksgiving briefly. It's about being against the war in Vietnam and resisting the draft. And "My Country 'Tis of My People, You're Dying." Buffy St. Marie, powerful song, exploitation of indigenous people. And then after we listened to him, I had a little bit of discussion with my family, and I believe I'm going to do that every year with my son and my wife on Thanksgiving. I can go in the comments. I've gotten better at this showing thing. Like I can show people's I can show people's comments down below. It's X. It's my first Thanksgiving. Well, that's great. Cooking. I don't really know how to cook myself. We ordered fast food this year. Hopefully there'll be no COVID, and my extended cooking family can help with that. There we go. Happy Thanksgiving from Commander. Having coffee and cigarette while the wild borders for potatoes. Right on. Good, sir. That was kind of a funny joke. It's a single. Yeah, it's a single. Usually singles are like 45s. You got one on one side, one on the other. And this is like there's no song breaks. No song breaks. Really good, fun, long song. It's really well. Arlo is a bit of a comedian. He does some good. He does this one called Clambo. I got that on vinyl too, which is really funny. That's cool. You're checking it out. Here we go. LK Habash, do you think Corona will lead to a new global economic order? That's interesting. So, I mean, if you look, China has been able to deal with Corona quickly and keep going. There's been a massive hit in the United States. Regardless of what the stock market says, as society has become more impoverished, they become more unstable, and you're seeing it with people coming out for Black Lives Matter. You're seeing it with the right wing. You're seeing it on right and left. People are not. They don't know where to turn. There's no Communist Party to lead people and show people. That's what we need to do. We need to spread ideology, socialist ideology that is capable of bringing on a socialist revolution in the United States. We need to be spreading that to the masses, not taking over the protest cage, but actually building workers' power by spreading the socialist message and ideology to our coworkers and to our neighbors. That's what we need to do. We need simple, plain, straightforward language to accomplish that. Now, is this bringing on new global? I think it's more of a bleep and something that had already started. I don't think it's going to be the thing that's going to bring upon the new global order. The global order of socialism, through the strengthening of the anti-imperialist bloc and the fall of the imperialist camp, has been happening for a while. I think this has shown that the U.S. system, at least to the people, is it's the emperor has no clothes, as I say. It's shown a great number of people, and that's why they've had to have these extraordinary political um, dramas, the drama of Trump, the drama of Joe Biden, to try to get people and round people back into, especially oppressed nations and the working class. Use, counter opposition like Trump, which they still firmly had control over, and then get herd them behind, a racist imperialist, um, like Biden, slightly more covert than Trump, but still on the same team. I mean, they represent differing factions within the bourgeoisie, but I mean, if he wasn't fully controlled, he certainly worked well. Trump certainly worked out well for the Democrats, um, to convince workers to continue to support the system in times of worsening economic conditions. I don't think this was the ultimate cause, but it's certainly shown the way the world is going, and it may have hastened it, only if momentarily. Okay. Oh, nice book cover. Is that Leninade soda? Yeah, right behind me. I bought these. I thought they were nice props. I have Gaddafi, Stalin, and Castro sodas, Fidel Castro. And that book is History of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. It is a great book. It reads like a textbook. Maybe I'll. It's a good prop right now, but I recommend that book. I kind of set up a little bit of a background behind me. I was actually supposed to Zoom some of my more extended relatives, and I used this, but I zoomed with my family down here in North Carolina. My extended relatives, probably more liberals, had already been on the chat earlier, but I was planning on having the chat with that in the background. That would have been entertaining, but it didn't. It didn't pan out that way. Tank Gang 1917. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Mr. Lucas T. Marshall. Um, Here's a link to these guys, a good socialist rock group. That's on Facebook. People want to go and get on that and check that out. That's cool. Let's see. I ain't got a lot of comments and kind of go over them. What streaming service? I use Be Live. It's very user friendly. They're actually having a Black Friday deal if you pay it a year in advance. 50% off right now. So even someone like me can use it. That's not a plug for them. I'm just saying what tools are available. David Gonzalez, happy turkey, missing my family, but glad they're safe from COVID. Same here. I just had a lovely fried chicken dinner with my wife and young son. Listened to politically conscious records and talked about them as a discussion as a family. And now I'm here with and I Zoomed with my father, Zoomed with my brothers and sisters, my nieces and nephews, did a little Zoom call with them. Now I'm here with you guys, my even more extended family, my socialist revolutionary family. And I'm very glad to be here and talk with y'all in these trying, difficult times. I have a single by Billy Paul's Me and Mr. Jones. Darth Hunter. Here we go. YouTube might be better than Facebook. I'm using both YouTube and Facebook. Okay. Caleb needs to get his notifications to work like dust. I've always get notifications on Facebook for this stuff. Good to listen to while I work. That's okay. That's interesting. The reason why I've continued to pay that streaming service is it seems like to get someone to subscribe to YouTube is difficult. I have between 500 and 600 subscribers on YouTube. And then on top of having to subscribe, they have to click the notification, and then they can hit all, or they can hit recommended, which means they won't get all my notifications. But all the people on Facebook who are my friends, which is nearly 4,000, I have 4,500 friends on Facebook. So 4,500 people get notifications on Facebook, while on YouTube, of those 500 or 600 people, they're not all getting all the notifications. So that really helps me out. Okay, different style. I mean, fella, I want you to start a YouTube channel. I mean, I've been out of college 10 years. I've been in the trade, driving trucks over the road, and I can figure this stuff out. You can figure this stuff out. You can read theory. We need, as Caleb Maupin said on his stream yesterday, I believe, we need working class politicians, people who engage in working class people that engage in politics and spread politics. Anything I can do, you can do, and you can do it better, and we can do it better together. I want you to do what I'm doing. I want you to read Stalin. I want you to teach your neighbors. I want you to start a YouTube channel. All of that. Okay. Darth Buddha, different styles, Dems and Republicans. But it does seem like they both go generally in the same direction. That's absolutely true. Democrats and Republicans are both imperialist and U.S. imperialists. They are terrorist organizations. Both the Democrats, they say they don't negotiate with terrorist organizations. Well, both the Democrats and the Republicans are mass murdering terrorist organizations that destroy whole countries, leave whole regions in destitute poverty and starvation for decades and years to come. They create genocides, and they say it's in our name of our freedom. But in reality, it's only to enrich themselves as they exploit the people here and exploit the people around the world and attempt to hold back history. Not only are they causing the death of our brothers and sisters and the global South, causing the deaths of people in oppressed nations and the working class from COVID right now. They are taking the money that is our investment in our future. They are literally stealing our future. The money they steal from us, and they simply pocket and they waste and they use on these wars and they use to maintain their system, could be going into infrastructure, could be going into technologies to make our world better, could be put into technologies to save the planet. They are stealing our future. These people are beyond serial killers. They are mass murderers and absolute evil on a concentrated scale. Democrats, Republicans, the squad, the lot of them. They are enemies of the working class, the international working class, and our brothers and sisters of the oppressed nations. Sorry, I get into some rants sometimes. You gotta forgive me. See, Itzel X. Province announced their last 9 poor countries met the standard to remove from the national list of impoverished counties in China. I did a very good, I believe my last live, China is making country music's dream a reality. That's kind of like the glorification of rural living. Workers were forced into the city, and country music glorified, country living. But it was hard, and there was a reason they went to the city, because life became better when we became industrial workers. But China is reinvesting, has that same problem. China is reinvesting in the countryside and building businesses and forms of economy so people can sustain themselves in rural area. The dream, country music's dream, is being made a reality in China. Check that out. Darian Hale. Let me check that out. Yeah, it switches it up. Darian Hale. What's a discussion you have the most with your wife? Okay, I don't know. I don't know what that's about. Usually, I got to pay this bill. I got to pay that bill. What are we not going to buy? What are we going? That's a pretty good one. I need to get lunch this time, or I'm not going to get it then. I got to get up in 2 hours. Normal around the kitchen table with any other working family. And also about Marx and Lenin and Stalin and oppressed nations and China and the dream of what's going on in China. What I've read in the news. I mean, you should talk with your family. Talk with your family about socialism and your dreams and your ideas and why you do what you do. And you can always talk to them in a way that they can understand and try to get to them. I know you got to live with your family, continue to live with you. Don't want to piss them off too bad. But how do you expect to talk to people if you can't even talk to people that care about you about these things? And a big shout out to Caleb Maupin. I enjoyed your live yesterday. Thanks for the shout out. I just used your term worker politician. I really like that. And I want more people to do that. I want more people to do these YouTubes. I want more people to talk with their neighbors, struggle and organize. And a big part of it is I really don't get caught up in the movement. There's a big problem with movementism. Movementism goes in the circle, all that. So great. That show we did with Caleb was good fun. We're gonna do a show tomorrow. What about that interview guys show I did with the comrade who is a Taiwanese-based hip hop artist? That was a great talk. And if you look on my Anti-Imperialist America Facebook page, he actually took a segment out of it and translated it into Chinese. I'm hoping that spreads far and wide. Bit of international solidarity. Anthony Penza, okay, went and visited my 95-year-old grandma, but was only able to talk to her through the storm window on the front door. Very, very safe, very safe. People are making decisions out here. Honestly, I always blame a lot of people. Okay, so here's something I want to talk about. NPR is out here talking bullshit about redneck people who don't really trust the media. Redneck folks who don't really country folks, regular working folks, white folks, as well as African American folks, Chicano folks. They're out here trying to put the blame of the spread of COVID on the working class because we meet up with each other, because we want to see our families, because we continue to work after we get COVID. But I don't see them calling out the companies that allow us to continue to work. I don't see them calling out the squad for signing the CARES Act when it didn't include a shutdown the economy and mass and bigger stimulus packets for the working class. Stop blaming the working class that is trying to do the best in their lives, trying to get by, trying to make a living, trying to see their family. I know we got it. And then you are backing the systems, the companies that continue to make profits off of the COVID. Amazon. Liberals who continue to blame the working class and not blame the companies that are profiting off of this COVID crisis are a problem. It is a major contradiction. I'm not saying that to take blame off. I'm not saying that we shouldn't take precautions as working people. I think we as working people, we should take those cautions. We should try to wear masks. We should, look at our grandma through a storm door instead of going in there. You might, and spread that to her. Just like myself, it was just me and my wife and my son for this Thanksgiving. But we got to call out these liberals who try to blame COVID, blame everything on the working class, and never hold the people in power who build and profit off the institutions that create these systems of oppression and create the deaths from COVID and continue this system. I didn't realize you interviewed. I don't remember how to say the comrade Xing Yu. I probably didn't say that right, but yeah, it was a good interview. When people want to get up and look at that, it'd be great. I gotta cough real quick. No, sorry, comrades. What do you think about North Carolina's poverty? I grew up in poverty in North Carolina. I fled poverty to move to less poverty in North Carolina. I actually grew up harder than a lot of folks in my class, in my school system. And when I got a trade, I went to college, activist for a bit, that won't work, and dropped out. And I got a trade and I sacrificed and I was away from my family and I pushed and I worked hard, long hours. I mean, I'm not saying I just I'm not saying that other people who don't work hard, who work harder than I could have easily, there's people that work harder than I do and have less, but I worked really hard for what I have. That's what I'm saying. And, to get a trade, and I got a trade, and I got, and I can afford a little more than some of my neighbors who grew up better than I did. And a lot of the kids who grew up better than I did are doing worse than me now. And it's sad. And I want to change it. I want people to be able to work jobs and have decent living standards and have health care, have education, and be happy and excited about the future. And I don't see that happening under capitalism. And that's why I'm on here with you, comrades. And it's going to take our neighbors and our coworkers putting a portion of their effort, not just living and enjoying life. Communists are like amazing people. Like everybody, like you growing up in poverty, it's hard enough just not to get into drugs and violence and get put in prison. It's hard enough just avoiding that enough to be able to push yourself to afford your basic standard of living. Dedicate yourself to the point where you get a standard of living where you almost can live. So for a communist, you got to work your ass off. Try to maintain your standard of living. Avoid drugs. Avoid pitfalls that they purposely put out for working class. And not only do that, go above and beyond providing for yourself and your family and dedicating additional effort to the cause for socialism, for the cause for the people, for the cause of lifting everyone, not just yourself, but everyone out of poverty. And that is communists are the best human beings alive, because they raise themselves out of poverty. They work hard to raise themselves out of poverty, and then they put a portion of their efforts to raising everyone out of poverty on top of what they're already doing for themselves and their families. Okay. Let's go with this one. What do you think about Julian Assange? Julian Assange is a hero. Julian Assange exposed the lies of the empire, the most disgusting enemy that has ever existed in human history, imperialism backed by U.S. imperialism. Julian Assange exposed their lives, and he's been persecuted for it. He's a martyr for the cause of truth. and an ally in the cause of anti-imperialism for the international working class and the oppressed nations. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. Internet connection died up. Are people still on? Are people still live? What happened? It just kind of went out for a bit. Um, if anybody wants to get in the comments and say what happened, that'd be great. Are you guys still with me? I don't even remember where I left off on, what message I left off on. Fuck. That's the first time the internet's gone off on a bad, and I'm in a very rural area, so. All right, looks like I'm back up and running. Right on, guys. So sorry about that delay. Looks like my internet connection went bad for a second, and my sign fell down when I opened the door. Put it back up. All right, so working class communists have to avoid the pitfalls. Have to avoid the pitfalls. Oh shit! I did a whole thing on. So it stopped right around Julian Assange. So let me go back to that. Let me go back. Okay, so I did a whole thing that totally didn't get shown. Oh wow, and it's quite a ways back. Here it is. Here it is. All right, here we go. Julian Assange is a hero. Julian Assange sacrificed himself for the benefit of truth as an ally of the anti-imperialist cause, exposing some of the worst criminals and horrific monsters that humanity has ever seen. U.S. imperialism, imperialism led by U.S. imperialism. Okay. You don't blame rural folks for not trusting U.S. media and any folks for that matter. CNN silenced Jamal Broman for speaking truth in Biden's cabinet. Yes, and I'm sick and tired of rich elitist liberals who can point out these ignorant motherfuckers out here trying to kill grandma, but they can't point out the heads of these companies, the heads of Amazon, the heads of Walmart, the heads of these and people they own stock in, people they are profiting from the system. Bourgeois liberals are profiting from the system that is killing people and is killing black, poor, black, and brown people at higher rates. They're profiting off that system and blaming ignorant working class people on the problem as the problem. They need to look at themselves. And we got to educate our fellow workers and try not to make sure grandma dies, but at the same time, we got to point it to the system of capitalism that the liberal politicians are profiting and maintaining, that is killing people with the COVID crisis. Dahomey Zapatilla, very inspiring. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, the dude of Taiwan ancestry, a great video. Please check that out, friends. Yes, I froze for a minute. I'm back. This streaming service, if I get disconnected, it continues the stream without me. I wish it had a cutoff switch, but it doesn't. I was interviewing a comrade. Let's see, I was interviewing Ignacio de la Sol. Very young, promising comrade down in Florida. His writing is amazing and theory is really advanced. And instead of pushing stop stream, I click the X, and it just like froze for like 10 minutes at the end of that stream. Then I eventually wanted to push stop, but I'm glad to be back. And I'm not sure if I'll edit that out. I might keep that as is. We're here. The CIA got me. No, see, my internet connect. I live in a rural area. It's surprising. I only have 10 megabytes of internet. No, not 10. Yeah, no. How many? Yeah, I only have 10 megabytes of internet. I know some of y'all city folks got 100 megs, 200 megs. I am running this YouTube channel. It's been quite successful. I mean, look at all y'all here. Look at all the views, some of my videos, Facebook and YouTube. I think the one video, if you add up the views on both Facebook and YouTube, the video with me, Caleb, and David Fox got almost 1,500 views. That's exciting. We're growing, and share this out. Share this out. If you got friends on YouTube, get them to subscribe to my channel. I mean, I'm not charging. I'm not telling people to go. I'm not asking for money. I'm doing this to spread socialism out of to benefit the cause. And I think these ideas need to be talked about. And if y'all can share these videos out on Facebook, on Twitter, on the Instagrams, on the whatever the hell is outs, whatever the newest thing, y'all can share this out or tell if you got fellow YouTubers, tell them subscribe to me, get their folks to subscribe to me. That'd be great. Conversation will get bigger. Only makes this message stronger. Okay, still coming down. Still coming down. Okay. Simon color screen. Okay, it's still coming by. All right, glad we're back. Right on. And blue fascism. Absolutely right. Yes. Well, I don't like to use the word fascism loosely. If you call someone a fascist, that means they are so evil that you would unite with capitalist imperialists against that fascist power. Now, in the case of Trump, I do not believe he fit that definition. That is why I didn't believe that we should be voting for Biden and uniting with liberals to stop Trump, because I do not believe that Trump, in my definition, was a fascist. And fascism is a completely new form of government, a form of government that completely gets rid of the freedom of speech, a form of government that centralizes that power, the most reactionary forces which Trump fit, but also the most imperialist. I also, and it was, if you read George Dimitrov's work, he says it's also the financial capital. Now, I've been rethinking that position because historically in the U.S., this form of the bourgeoisie, it's actually been the liberals who've been in with the banking class, and the banking class are the leaders of the imperialists. And it has been this lower level of people that have been into more right-wing rhetoric. But but if you look at in the crisis back in the 1940s, instead of going towards fascism, they went more towards social democrat ism. They went towards further towards being a social democrat. And I think that's the way the U.S. would be. That's actually more efficient. If there was enough of a struggle, I think the bourgeoisie is enough control. They might go further towards that. It's unclear, but Trump was not, my definition, of fascism, and neither are the Democrats. But they're all very fascistic. And they are the most destructive. And honestly, the main enemy today is not fascism. The main enemy today is imperialism, imperialism led by U.S. imperialism. And that's why I'm calling for a popular front against imperialism. And I emphasize a popular front because a popular front is reaching the vast masses of the working class, not just the left, vast masses of the working class, with an emphasis on culture and roots and coming from the community. And this means not being a part of the Democratic or Republican Party, but forces like the Panthers, forces like Chicano nationalists, forces that are of the masses, from the masses to the masses, deep roots in the community, that can have long, protracted ideological education campaigns and long, protracted political work with a firm, ongoing base in the community, in oppressed communities and working class communities. That is what we have to do, and not organizations and not groups that are formed around and caught up in movementism. Movementism, the protest cage, the merry-go-round of echoing just a more radical version of whatever MSNBC says. That's not helping any. When you grow power, when communists grew power in the 1930s and the 1940s, it grew from the working class, from and of the working class, for the working class. And that is the beginning of formations like the Soviets or in the Soviet Union. That is the Communist Party in China with 90 million people, including representation in rural areas. That is the colectivos in Venezuela. That is the community and labor organizations that form the coalition, which is the movement towards socialist party in Bolivia. This is for almost like forming a socialist shadow government that's firmly rooted, its power is firmly rooted in the working class and the oppressed nations, that can take over after the empire implodes and destroys itself. Here's a suggestion. Do a program with Caleb Maupin and David Fox on Julian Assange. Now, David Fox is a good person to do work with Julian Assange on because David Fox is from Australia. And if you look at his comments, he says the Australian government has not done enough to speak up and to protect Assange because Australia is part of the imperialist bloc. And David Fox talked about how there was investigations into war crimes and there was fascistic culture within the Australian armed forces, even the emergence of Confederate flags amongst troops, Australian troops. And to me, that's not really surprising. I mean, that has nothing to do with Australia, but someone from the South, the Confederate flag, battle flag in particular, has reached areas far outside of the South. If you go to rural communities and New York, Minnesota, California, rural white people identify with the Confederate flag. And a lot of it is racism. I mean, the political organization that was the Confederacy. I don't know. Its sole purpose, the Confederacy, full purpose was to defend the institution of slavery, race-based system of slavery, but also, the Confederate flag is associated with this kind of rebellion, this rural working class rebellion against the larger capitalist bourgeois society. And I think that's a stupid thing to do that. Why are you gonna put, a flag that's sole purpose was to keep an oppressed nation down to support a class issue when the oppression of class nation, the oppression, the national oppression assists or is a integral part of class oppression. So you cannot combine um, class oppression of rural workers and the oppression of oppressed nations. It should not be combined ever. But I mean, a lot of rural white folks from north to south, all the way out to Australia, associate it's kind of a feud between the Irish Scottish folks and the blue blood English. And a lot of rural folks and mountain folks have Scottish Irish background. If you look at Gone with the Wind, it's actually to portray, which is a romanticization of the South, of the slave South, and um, almost a criticism of the just war that put down the South. It was actually an Irish slave owner, which they used. And that was done purposely because, they were an immigrant, they came here, they tried to make it, and y'all destroyed slavery, and that was unjust. And that was purposely used. But this kind of rural worker, rebellious against the system of the bourgeoisie has been attacked. That cultural tendency has been attacked onto a flag that shouldn't be. I think I would like to tap into that cultural aspect, but have it be also militantly anti-racist. So something that respects the working class oppression, the struggle of rural workers, including rural white workers, that is in solidarity with our oppressed African American and immigrant brothers and sisters. And there has been historical examples of this. In my own state in North Carolina, we had fusion parties. And in these fusion parties, it was populists united with largely black Republicans that formed fusion parties and won seats and took government power. Populist, poor whites, and black Republicans formed fusion parties and took power away from the former slave owning aristocracy of the Democrats. And in Wilmington, North Carolina, where they took power, there was actually a literal coup. This was unacceptable. This is American democracy. As soon as the result is unacceptable to those who are really in control, they change it. It is only the illusion of democracy. The slave owning class in Wilmington, North Carolina, they call it the Wilmington Riot, actually put down a populist fusion government. Poor whites, populist, and free slave Republicans had their own government. It was brutally put down in Wilmington, North Carolina. And that goes, and it's talking about the Australian flag. There's a lot of racism in Australia, but David Fox got onto something in one of his lives that I really loved. And Australia started out as a penal colony, and there was a lot of Scots Irish that were sent there as well as the poor folks there. And they became a settler colony and horribly exploited the Aboriginal people. But they were always kind of felt like they were like kind of kicked out. So you could see why people associating this class oppression with the Confederate flag, wrongly, I do believe, you can see how that would apply to Australia, why they would identify with the Confederate flag. I mean, it's wrong because the Confederate flag was made by a political entity whose sole purpose was to keep down Afro-American people who were held in slavery. I think here's a good example. If you look at the Young Patriots, which formed a coalition with the Black Panthers, they actually had rebel flag imagery. They used rebel flag imagery. They were called the Young Patriots. And there's a few things to say about that. Well, first of all, the rebel flag has been associated with working class oppression and oppression of rural whites in the United States. It's been associated with oppression, the bourgeois oppression of that. But it was from a political system that was holding up slavery. So there's positive sentiments. People wrongly place positive sentiments behind, culture, positive culture, food, music. They associate stuff that doesn't need to be associated with the rebel flag. The Confederate battle flag. I don't want to say rebel flag. See, that's why it's called rebel flag, because we're rebellious against the capitalist bourgeoisie, the main form of government. Now, that should be in solidarity with the oppressed nations, not, oh, we really need to keep them down and we're going to be the rule. That's the reason. If you look at that coalition, I mean, the Young Patriots actually had to get rid of that Confederate flag imagery. That was good. But they were like, the only one that stuck out for us Hicks was the Black Panthers. And if you can go from revolutionary communist, Black nationalist, intercommunalist Black Panthers, going into poor white communities or working with poor white revolutionaries, the Young Patriots, they use Confederate flag imagery and find common ground and struggle against the bourgeoisie, that is absolutely powerful. And I think that opportunity is still available today. There's lots, and it's growing as poverty grows. Working peoples, regardless of race, it is in working people's class interest to establish socialism. And as things get worse, people get more desperate and people will start to see through the lies. And maybe people have wrongly put positive elements into Confederate flag imagery. But if you organize on a class basis and you struggle with working class, you got to love the working class is flawed. The working class is racist. The working class is racist against themselves sometimes. Like oppressed nations will be racist against themselves. Working class whites will be racist against oppressed nations. The working class can be homophobic. The working class can be all these things. And these things are bad and should be dealt with. But the liberals, the bourgeois elite class, can have a privileged position can educate themselves, understand these things much easier because they're not being forced to work all their fucking life and never have time to learn about these genuine positive struggles. You know, they had the time to analyze these things, and they analyzed them. They develop they put them in the platforms of their parties. The Democratic Party seems like, and their media systems, NPR, all this, Democracy Now, they put it into their bourgeois propaganda. They put it in their political parties to appeal to these women, transgender folks, gay folks. So they put appeals to those folks in their political platforms, in their struggles. But at the same time, they're profiting and maintaining institutions that maintain class, the main contradiction of class and national oppression. And people and LGBTQ folks, um, women, all these folks are not only dealing with that level of oppression, they're dealing with class and national oppression on top of being socially persecuted. You know, so if you're trying to build power to change things, the bourgeois will use whatever propaganda it can to get people to vote against their class and national interest. They will use racism, they will use progressivism, they will use tolerance, they will use whatever the fuck they can use to convince people to vote for these horrific war criminals that keep stealing our wages and our rights. You got to love the working class, and the working class is imperfect. And you got to love them how they are and struggle with them and grow the working class. Win victories for the working class. Educate the working class, but not alienate the working class. Love, hold up, help grow the working class, build workers' class power, build power in the oppressed nations, Black power, Chicano power, workers' power. And it's formed through independent organizations, deep-hearted with deep roots in the working class and oppressed communities. This is where the struggle and the power comes, that are not wholly attached to the Democrat Republican Party or the trend of movementism. Shit, I wasn't even planning. I've been going on over an hour here. I think I made some good good points. I think about to head off. If anybody wants a question to be answered before I go ahead and put it in the chat. Looks like I lost my Facebook audience. No, I still got a Facebook audience. All right, if I don't have any more things here. And I think that was a good comment there. And as always, comrades, all power to the people.